Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Susan Lopresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. This is the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan Lopresti, and I have a very special guest and friend with me here today, and her name is Tina Blease. She has a consulting business that's called Simply Green and Healthy Home. Her intention, both personally and professionally, is to raise awareness of toxic chemicals in most homes by educating and offering safer solutions to everyday consumer products. She is dedicated to touch as many homes and lives as possible to help create a plan that will positively impact their health and create a safer home to live and breathe in. Her personal health is dedicated by the environment we live in, and sometimes guidance is needed along a family's wellness journey. It's very rewarding for her to help inspire people to lead a healthier lifestyle by making simple changes to their everyday lives. So, without further ado, Tina, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me and listening to my mission statement. It just made me think about, gee, I just want to save the world.
And I believe that you are one family at a time.
That's what I really try to do. Yes.
Yes. So, I want us to talk about our immune system and the simple basics of it. So, let's start at the beginning. What's the main function of our immune system?
Our immune system is a very simple yet very complicated part of our bodies being alive. The best way to describe it is like our immune system is the car. So when we're born perfect. Everything's running correctly and we're good to go. So as we, get older, we start drinking mother's milk. And so that's our gas. That's where we get a lot of our energy from. And as we get older, more things come into play. We need to exercise like a car. You can't just leave it in the garage. You have to turn on the motor sometimes and you have to go down the street. Sometimes you need to change its wheels because the wheels kind of get old. And sometimes as we mature, we need to take care of some of our working pieces in our bodies as well. And also, sometimes you need to take a bath. You need to take care of the outside of your skin, outside of the car. If you live on the East Coast, you have to probably after every winter into spring, you have to hose down because salt gets underneath and it eats the chrome underneath that. So right. So if you kind of think about our immune system as a car, the more you keep it maintained, the more you keep it clean, the more you just enjoy the ride, the healthier and the long living aspect of your car will be. And it's the same with our body.
Right. That makes it's a great analogy. It really
Thank
is.
you.
So I understand that. So basically, you need to keep your car, let's say, up to date on oil changes and whatever else. And that's maintenance thing smoothly and reliable. And we want the same for our body. We want to be sure that we're putting in the right things so that we get the most out of our body, right?
Absolutely. And also the environment, our cars.
Let's say where there are 4 seasons, are any of those seasons where the immune system actually has to work harder?
Yes, there is. So let's say our body's on in peak performance. We eat healthy, organic as much as possible. We exercise, we get enough sleep, and we're doing, daily activities to keep our health intact. So let's say we go into the winter season. Well, our environment changes both inside and outside. Our bodies tend to need more energy to stay warm. So that might be the time that you start eating a little more protein, a little more something of substance like oatmeal, warm things. Our bodies really appreciate that. And then outside, the sun isn't as bright and warm as it usually is,
Yeah.
especially if you're above the 37th parallel. That's when you might want to start taking extra vitamin D supplement, because vitamin D is one of the most important minerals that we get that we do need to keep our bodies running at peak performance. When it's kind of cold and dreary outside, you kind of feel, meh, it's probably because you didn't have enough vitamin D that day to feel up and energized. And so let's say, what happens if our bodies aren't getting what it needs and we're starting to feel a little punky? Then the body goes into high performance. So it starts looking for what it is that is making them feel a little punky. With that being said, more energy is needed, and all of our little cells that they're like our little army. They go around our bodies looking for the virus or the bacteria that has invaded its healthy space, and it tries to get rid of it. So the health of our immune system will determine how strong our little army, like that little army,
Yes.
our little army gets to the virus or the bacteria to get rid of it. If our army isn't as strong as it could be, well, then, sometimes the battle is fought and whoever wins determines whether you continue to be healthy and you don't get sick or you end up getting a cold or a flu.
Right. So let's talk about those invaders that attack our system. What are they? Name a couple and what they are related to.
Okay. So the most common one that we deal with every day, and what we hear about the most are viruses. Viruses are either, that's kind of like the umbrella word, but it can either be a cold or it can be a flu. And then from there it gets more complicated. So, we'll just keep, simple.
Right.
So a virus will come into our environment. And again, our system will determine whether we even feel us get sick. Our viruses will come in through the moisture areas of our bodies, like through our eyes, through our nose, through our mouth.
Right.
Some viruses will even come through our skin, especially in areas that we have maybe cut ourselves. That's an infection. That would be a bacteria thing. But again, that's how we get sick that way. So let's say if it's a flu or a cold, it gets in your nose. It can kind of be in there for 3 to 5 days before our immune system decides if we're going to get rid of it with sneezes, with blowing our nose, with those
Right.
kind of activities. That's how our body detoxes itself. If you really think about it, of these bad viruses or bullies, or if it's going to go into our system, and so that's when we start getting the head cold, maybe a headache, and then kind of goes down into our throat, into our lungs, and that's when we need rest. We need rest, drinking vitamin C, elderberry syrup, all the things that our moms used to tell us to do so that we can then rejuvenate our immune system so that we can be healthy as quickly as possible.
Right. And then, so what about bacteria? That's a little bit different. What you get from the bacteria is a little bit more of an illness that's going to take you out for a little bit longer, right? I know pneumonia is one. They can-
Right. That's when a virus turns into a bacterial thing like bacterial pneumonia.
Okay.
But let's talk in general.
Yes.
Our skin is the first line of defense when it comes to bacterias. So the only way a bacteria can get into our skin is, like I mentioned earlier, is if our skin has been cut or or just really rough. It happens a lot when you use a lot of hand sanitizer with alcohol, or when you just get dry skin because your skin gets really dry, there's cracks, and so there's a lot of opportunity for bacteria of any kind to get into your skin. And there's other layers of defense, so it's just not a one and done thing.
Right.
That's why it's important when you have a cut, you put some antibacterial cream on it. You wash it really well with soap and water because that will lead to infection. And as we all know, if not taken care of, infections can lead into inflammation in other parts of our body and cause internal damage, if it's not taken care of.
Right. It's interesting that you said about hand sanitizer with alcohol in it
Uh-huh.
because I remember during COVID, especially in New York, I mean, it was insane, and everyone was using hand sanitizer. But the funny thing is if it had alcohol in it, it was drying out your skin, and especially in the wintertime, your skin is already cracked and dry, and so it's almost counterintuitive to be using hand sanitizer.
It- And I agree. That's why I kind of brought up that example because so many were using hand sanitizers, which, there's an appropriate time for that. However, if you overuse it, if you overuse anything, it can have a not so good side effect. And that was one of them, which then required people to use a lot of hand lotion, which is fine. But again, and I think we're going to talk about that shortly, is what we put on our skin, you know, gets immediately into our bloodstream. So whatever you do put on your hands or expose your skin to needs to be plant-based or non-toxic or something that is more natural.
Right. Okay. We pretty much covered that. So let's talk about the toxins that are in the environment and also harmful chemicals, because I know that that definitely plays a role in our health and breaking down our health. So let's talk about that for a bit.
Okay. So when a person says environment, I see most of the time they think about outside. And
True.
that's true. When we walk outside, there's pollen in the air, there's pollution in the air. I'll just talk on the negatives, because we're talking
Yeah.
about toxins. Although pollen isn't a toxin, it's needed for nature, but it can affect people
Yes.
in a toxic way.
Yes.
Um,
Allergies. So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And so there's pollution. There's all kinds of fumes that may oh God, traveling in another country and you get behind a catalytic converter. Oh my goodness, that is something we don't have in America, which I'm so thankful for. But those are the things that affect us. Now our bodies have a voice, and when something like a catalytic converter smell or pollution or something that isn't our bodies doesn't like, we know it. We go, "Ooh, that stinks," or it gives us a migraine, like a catalytic converter smell for me. I
Right.
want to remember it. Or our body reacts wonderfully to it. You walk alongside a jasmine and it's beautiful and you make notice of it and you're happy. And so I think over time, we have forgotten to listen to our body. So that's example of the outside environment. Well, our inside environment is, I would say, equal to or more important than our outside environment. And the reason is we we live in our homes now in very energy efficient homes that don't breathe very well, unless you open the windows, but you can't do that in the wintertime. So we are stuck, or we work in an office. So we were kind of forced to live indoors for a whole lot more time than we are outdoors. And with that being said, again, that's another area that we've forgotten to really think about. What is it that we are breathing inside that, all day long, all night long, in the offices, in our cars? I'll just give another example. When I go to restaurants, I love eating out. I'm a foodie. I go into the restroom and there's this very strong smell of Clorox bleach.
Yeah.
Well, in my past, that Clorox bleach gives me migraines. And so I don't have a very good feeling or memory about that. And I can remember my mom cleaning the bathroom with Clorox and walking right out. And it's like, ooh. So, so even now my body is saying, oh, that's not good. And I will remember that incident every time I think about going back to that restaurant.
Right.
Um, so my body is saying, no, that's not a good smell. So the same with our home, as consumers, we can choose what products to bring into our home. And we do that every day, every week, every month, all the time. So it's kind of deciding, well, do I start choosing to purchase and bring in products, consumer products in my home, like cleaning products, personal care products, makeup, shampoo, conditioners, even candles, everything that we purchase that are consumables? Do I choose to bring in more plant-based products? Or do I just do what I normally do? I go to the store every week and I purchase these products every month. And that's just what I've been doing for 30, 40 years. My mom did the same thing.
Right. I was just going to
Yeah,
say that
exactly.
you just
Uh,
follow suit, right? Of what you grew up with.
oh, totally.
Yes.
Totally. And we all do that. And
Yes.
even though I was a very green person living in California, ate organic, got plenty of sun, eat dirt, the whole bit, weeds the seeds kind of gal, I was still cleaning my home with Clorox, Ajax, Lysol at my
Yes.
house.
Tide
And that was
detergent.
only 20 years ago. And so, wellness is a journey and we make changes as we need. So that's the importance of, that we as consumers have the choice to bring in healthier, safer, non-toxic products in our home because we understand our bodies breathe and absorb everything that's in the environment. As opposed to walking outside, we have no control of the outside environment.
Right. Unless we decide to move on a farm like you live or somewhere in a remote area. But I know for me, I live in the city limits, more or less, a suburb of New York City, but still it's the city. And I worked in Times Square 27 years. And so walking from Penn Station to Times Square every day, there's trucks and cars, so it isn't just air pollution, it was noise pollution, it was people pollution because there were people everywhere. And it just wreaked havoc on me. I was very sensitive. I'm still sensitive to loud noises. So yeah, that kind of pollution as well. And then you add to it being in an office 8 hours a day and then getting on public transportation and everyone is packed in and you're breathing in each other's faces, it will definitely bring down your immune system. All of that, just the stress of what I just described will compromise your immune system. And then if you have other things going on, it makes it even worse. So, what do you offer or what do you suggest as an alternative to these toxic products that you buy in the supermarket? What's the options for that?
Okay. So I would like to address living in the city versus on a farm.
Okay.
That's what vacations are for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not here. And now I do live on a farm and sometimes vacation for me are going into the city. But I do want to say our immune systems are amazing machines. And it takes just a little bit of consistent daily effort to make it happy, to stay strong. And there is a benefit, though, to being in a busy environment with lots of people, because another analogy is our immune system is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it
Yes.
gets weak. And going into public, being on subways in a good way, like you want to go to the opera,
Okay.
it's actually a good thing because our good generals and soldiers are bumping up against bad bad generals and soldiers and somebody else. And so they kind of fight externally.
Mhm.
And it gives the energy to the good soldiers to combat and win over the bad soldiers. And that's like a natural boost. And now we know what boosts are in regards to vaccines. Vaccines are not natural, but they give you a certain time of immunity for a certain illness.
Mm.
But then later on, like tetanus, you're supposed to get another booster every 10 years because it needs to be replaced. Well, that's the same thing when we bump up against other people, and it's a natural boost that our immune system needs 100 times a day if possible. So it's a good thing. Okay. I just wanted to add that. So what?
Yes.
Okay. So consumer products. Now going back to our choices, um, our body, like I mentioned at the very beginning, our body works hard when the environment that it's living in, whether externally in our environment or there's an internal issue, it requires more energy to fight against it, to stay healthy. So doesn't it make sense that if you know that and understand that, that the food that you bring in your home is organic? Because we all know conventional food, there's pesticides on it. So that's one example. Another example is our cleaning products. We all know those are poisons. That's why they're high up, behind locked doors if you have
Then
children.
have that warning, that X or
Oh yeah, that X. Oh yeah. And animals, if you love your animals, you're not going to purposefully put poisons in their way. But did you ever think about the fumes that come out of those cleaning products that are affecting them? I just did an article not too long ago about the canary in the coal mine. Our animals are smaller, they're not as big as we are. And so they can be affected by fumes and other issues before they would ever affect us as humans. So that's
Yeah.
another thing to consider.
I was going to say, not to interrupt you, but it just came to mind when you are shopping in the supermarket and you go down the aisle with the cleaning products, you can smell it could give me a headache by the time I start at the front of the aisle and walk down. I try to avoid that aisle because all the smell, I think they call it outgassing, that it
Outgassing.
actually comes out. And
Mhm.
the scents are so strong, and it's just terrible, and so, yeah, you don't realize it. It's in smaller doses when it's in your home, and you may not smell it as strongly, but you're smelling and breathing in these scents.
That's called microdosing when they're in your home and you don't smell them
Yeah.
every day, every week, every year, every decade. It does wear down your immune system. And you just multiply that with everything else that it happens in your home. Another thing that we talked about the skin. Our skin is the largest organ, but it doesn't have filters. Our cells don't have filters in it. For example, when we eat something, it goes through our stomach, our digestive system, all the good things get processed internally for our nutrition, all the not so good stuff or extras get detoxed out, as
Right.
we all know, for lack of a better way. But our skin doesn't have that. So our skin breathes just like our noses do. Every time you put lotions and creams on your skin or brush your teeth or put eye drops in your eyes, it gets immediately brought into your blood system. It takes 23 seconds or less. So just think about all the personal care products we put on our skin daily.
Yeah.
Like toothpaste, soaps, lotions,
Moisturizers,
washing your
shampoo.
hair, because that's getting, the scalp and skin, it gets into there, body lotions, underarm deodorant. And that's just in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So it is.
remember reading something. It's a crazy amount of products that because don't forget makeup,
Oatmeal.
right? So I think it's like 38 toxins a day. If you're not using clean products, you're putting on your body daily.
Mm, That I
I
would
read
not.
that somewhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. That's
No.
probably pretty average. And so the answer to that is, well, what can we do about that? It is looking at the ingredients, finding places, stores, online stores that provide non toxic, plant based products. And they're out there. And you may think, oh, I can't afford Whole Foods, so I can't make. No, yeah, I can't afford Whole Foods. Whole paycheck. I don't know how many people really can to shop there exclusively. But there are other companies that you may not know about, just a little research, or you can ask around on stores that provide affordable, safer for your home products. And I'll tell you why. our bodies, like we've been talking about, our body's voice definitely tells us when it doesn't like something, but
Yes.
it also loves when it's plant-based because then the results, the reaction to a plant-based product is our bodies become happy, like eating an orange versus eating potato chips,
Yes.
breathing in a natural fragrance versus a chlorine based product. So, simply thinking like that will help you make simpler, easier decisions for what you would want to spend your hard earned money on and bring into your home.
Right. Because long term, overall, because I think about this with food as well, you're either going to pay more for organic food and have cleaner, safer foods that you're ingesting, or down the road at some point, you're going to be paying for doctors. And I would rather pay and spend my money to stay healthy versus spend my money to hope that you get healthy after you end up getting sick. Right?
That
That's the way I feel about it. The other thing is that you were talking about the reactions that you get. Sometimes we get so used to a fragrance that we don't realize it. But have you ever been introduced to a new fragrance of some kind and you immediately get a headache? Or
walk
it
through
makes
Macy's.
or you become really tired and you're not able to focus as much and you don't make the connection that, oh, it's the plugins that I'm using because all of that stuff, all of those fragrances are toxic.
Yes. And our bodies kind of start shutting down because it doesn't like it.
Yes.
I
And that
so
bodies can't actually speak to us to say, please unplug that plug-in because it's making me sick. So we have to be our own detectives, I guess, really, and try and think about why don't I feel well when let's say, when I go to the office or when I'm home or when I wake up in the morning. Why do I always have a headache? Because that used to happen to me until they
mm,
changed the laundry detergent. Because let's face it, your clothes are on you 8 to 12 hours a day, and what you wash them in is seeping into your
organs,
body.
yeah. Mhm.
And then you go to sleep at night and you're sleeping another 8 hours on sheets that you also wash. So you're constantly exposed to toxins from these laundry detergents that have all these fragrances and chemicals that are supposed to make your laundry so clean. But what are they doing to our bodies? And that's what we really need to think more about and be cognitive of.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'd like to know we've been talking about adults, but let's talk about our children, like a 2-year-old, where they can't tell us, I have a headache. They
No,
haven't have that knowledge yet. But if we as adults are getting headaches from the laundry detergent or other the plug-ins or the Lysol that's being sprayed, because you want to disinfect your house, think about the child and then how they act out. They cry, they whine, they may have a tantrum, they may throw things, they may have a stomach ache,
right.
and take them to the doctor, and they may start maybe diagnosing him with ADD or ADHD, and so it's a very fine line.
Yes.
But if that is something that person has a concern about, it's not to go, maybe I'm not diagnosing anything, not go directly to a pharmaceutical drug of any kind, but start simple. Switch out all your cleaning products. Don't use plugins.
Right.
Open up your windows more, have more outdoor time. Change the food, no sugary drinks. And I know I'm speaking to the
Right.
choir.
That's a topic for a whole other day.
I know, but it's the connection that I think is forgotten about between our behavior, both adults and children, and the environment we live in, the things we breathe and the products we put on our skin.
I'm also thinking, Tina, what about our fur babies, our dogs and our cats? who are always on the floor, obviously, right? And if they're licking food off the floor and we're cleaning with toxic chemicals to keep our floors clean and carpet cleaners and whatever else. And I know people love their animals the way they love their children. I mean, they don't separate them really. And so that is another thing that we have to keep in mind because these animals are always on the floor.
Right. And we have 2 feet, they have 4.
Yeah.
And so they don't wear shoes.
No.
Whatever we have on the floor also gets absorbed through their paws into their little body.
Yeah.
And I know we want to keep our doggy dishes and cat dishes clean. So we maybe use Clorox to disinfect it. And then you wash it, but there's still always a residue left.
Yeah.
So now they're licking Clorox from their food. So you can get into the weeds and all this.
Yes, you
You don't want
can.
to go there, but it's just helping people who's watching this to connect the dots on consumer products, but how it is really easy to make that commitment to slowly switch things out. So disinfectant, if I had another minute here, I do live on a farm. I used to live in a neighborhood in San Jose, California. And over time, my husband and I slowly, moved to a farm. And I was looking at my chicken water feeder and it's been really cold and mucky. So I haven't really done a whole lot of things. But anyway, there was like green growing in it. It's like, oh, I got to clean. So I brought in the feeder and I used hot water and soap, but I used a natural disinfectant to just do that one bump up to kill the mold and the green stuff that was growing in there. And it's just thyme and lemon juice. That's all it was. But I'm too busy to make that. So I do purchase it from an online store that I do shop from, but thyme and lemon juice, that is so natural. It's not going to hurt anything. And I also use that same disinfectant to clean my vegetables when I bring it in from the garden because of the dirt. And I use chicken poo in my fertilizer dirt. And so I'm bringing in a lot of stuff a lot of the time.
Right.
But I do want to wash them. So there are very natural, simple solutions to every product that we use in our homes.
Yes. So you're taking your fruits and vegetables off of a farm. Imagine conventional farming where they're spraying pesticides and chemicals to kill the bugs. And if you're bringing those vegetables home and then you're just rinsing them or washing them with a toxic substance, you might as well eat potato chips because between all the other stuff, you're not even going to benefit from the vitamins of the vegetable unless you're using products that are safe and effective and
Yes.
also organic. I'm a big believer in spending more money and having cleaner food.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
any final thoughts?
Oh, it's that you don't have to be paralyzed in your health and wellness. It is a journey. And at different stages in our lives, and I'll go by decades, we kind of focus on different things. But as we get more mature, our needs do change and we need to change along with them and really focus on how do we want to live today and for our future and for our kids and our grandchildren. And that is to live a healthy lifestyle. I mean, we all deserve it. And it's everything that we should work for. And it can be done in a fun and amazing way.
Yeah.
Daily commitment, eat healthy, sleep, exercise. And when it comes to what you purchase, make sure it's worthwhile. It's deserving of you and all your hard work. And so you do deserve the best. And bringing healthier, safer consumer products in your home is a way that you can do that. And when you do that, you're supporting a company that is environmentally friendly, that is also concerned about your health and the health of the environment that you live in outside. And that is, again, where I want to put my money to continue that type of support. So those types of companies will continue to grow
Mhm.
and prosper.
Right.
Go Vulcans.
because they are looking at the best interest of the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, the larger, bigger companies are not.
No, no.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Right, right. And I'll have you on for that because I know that I wanted to touch on supplement. Let's do that real quick.
Okay.
Touch on supplements. So for your immune system during the winter months where you really need to like beef it up and be able to fight back with these viruses and bacterias, give me a couple of supplements or one or two that you would recommend for someone to increase their immune system.
Absolutely. Vitamin D is the most important thing.
Right.
Zinc is also really important because zinc helps your body absorb the nutrients that you're eating. It just gets it in your system better. Magnesium is really important as well. Those are the main three. I still drink a Coke every now and then and potato chips. And I grew up in college eating pizza and drinking beer and all that kind of stuff. And so, it is important that you enjoy life. So it is important to take a good multivitamin. And what is a good multivitamin or supplement of any kind? To make sure it actually absorbs and dissolves in your body. So that would be research that you would need to do. What's the absorption rate? If it's not more than 60 or 70%, then you're just wasting your money. So a good multivitamin with calcium is another great place to start. And then go to the doctor, naturopathic doctor, or even a functional medicine doctor where
Yeah.
you will get a blood test and they will tell you what you're deficient in.
Yes.
So then you can, with that knowledge, then you can go and, with a plan, just not take all the supplements and vitamins out there. Is a specific plan to increase the areas that you're deficient in. And then once you get status quo, then you can come up with a plan that makes you feel good. And, that's the wellness journey. It's a not one and done thing.
Right. And there are a lot of supplements out there that address the same issues that you would take prescription meds for, like berberine, which
Mhm.
helps with blood sugar levels and also cholesterol. So instead of taking, I don't even know what you call them, but I do know that they affect your brain after a while for cholesterol. You could take something natural like berberine, which will actually have the same
Okay.
effect without the side effects because with cholesterol medication, so many people will complain about aches and pains in their legs. And I know because my doctor had prescribed it to me at one point, and I took it for like 2 weeks. And I said, there is no way I'm continuing with this because I feel 20 years older already. I had unbelievable pains in my legs. And I switched to berberine
Mhm.
and also, of course, I started walking more and exercising more. And the next time that I went for a blood workup, my cholesterol levels had improved tremendously without a prescription medication.
And that is an exact example, a perfect example of how you listen to your body. You did it, you tried a couple of things, you knew what didn't work, what you didn't like, and you tried something else that you did like, and that's what happens. So
Right.
yay on you.
Well, our brains are made up with fat and cholesterol. And so when I started reading that these medications that lower cholesterol can affect your brain health over time, I know that I test positive for the gene for dementia or Alzheimer's, and it ran in my family. So why in the world would I take that medicine when I'm already trying to do everything I possibly can to avoid getting that? And so
Right.
I was able to work it out.
Yeah. That's
And
amazing, Susan. So
yeah,
to answer your question again in just a little different way, it's like, how else can we keep our immune system strong? Well, you just gave a great example that any medication that you take that is synthetic or not natural, it lowers your immune system because your body recognizes it's not natural.
right.
And so it has to work harder to keep your body up to snuff but then it can't. So it gets weak.
Yes, yes. So on that note, we're going to end. Tina, thank you so much for being here. Any one of my listeners who is curious about the products that Tina's using, in my show notes, I will have all the information that you can contact her. And she, as you can tell, is an expert in this area, and she would be happy to share her information with you. So, Tina, thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure. I learned a lot. I'm sure my listeners did also, and I'd love to have you come back on. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would love to come back again.
Okay, thanks.